All right, good morning. Welcome in. The show is brought to you by RPT, Rick's Pro Truck, new retail location, Gluckstadt, Madison County. Spraying bedliners, lift kits, you name it, they got it. ricksprotruck.com. ricksprotruck.com. Live in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, genespage.com, Hail State Insider. Steve, after the fight, after the bowl game on Thursday, I'm hearing that is it true that Mississippi State's going to shut down their football program?
Yeah, sadly, the program is going to be disbanded. The campus is going to be bulldozed, and we're going to, tar and feather everybody involved with the administration. And at this point forward, Mississippi State, probably just going to stick to intramural sports.
Incredible. I am going to get to how big a win it was, but we do want to hit on this. I just want to get I know you hit it on your Boneyard podcast, but Tulsa had been aggressive and chippy all day, and evidently throughout the year. What was your takeaway on postgame?
And listen, I give those guys a lot of credit. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they were a very, very physical football team, even when there weren't, cheap shots and that kind of stuff that happened. I mean, and listen, let's be honest. We all know this. All week long, all they heard ever since the bowl matchup was announced is, hey, you're good enough to beat an SEC team. A lot of those guys that play in the G5 didn't get recruited by the Power Five, so they show up with a chip on their shoulder. And it started in pregame. It continued once the game started, and it spilled over into the end. But I give those guys credit for playing hard and really being competitive, and we knew they would be. I mean, they've been in every single game. They give up 13 points to Oklahoma State in the fourth quarter to lose that ball game in the season opener, and they give up a last-second field goal in the AAC championship game against Cincinnati. So you knew Philip Montgomery would have those guys ready to play, and when you hear that all along, that you're good enough, you're good enough, you're good enough, you're good enough, and then you lose, and then it's a reminder that you're not quite good enough, people get emotional.
Yeah. All right. 4 touchdowns were scored Thursday for Mississippi State. All 4, not by just freshmen, true freshmen. Walk us through what, now that they're done with the season and they go out on a 2-game winning streak and they found their quarterback and other true freshmen and young players emerged as really good players and impact players. Where do you see this thing headed going into the spring?
Well, I think you've got a lot of momentum and a lot of positive lift. I mean, that was the thing, for the last, 6 weeks or so, Mississippi State has played pretty well. I mean, and you could make an argument, could have won every single one of the games that they played. And you look back over the course of the season, other than the Alabama game, State was in every game. And you have the big purge. And you and I have talked about this, the team that beat LSU was not the same team that took the field against Tulsa. It was a completely different team. So you go through this roster makeover midseason, and you find some direction, and you find some guys you can count on. And one of the things that I was told is about 2 weeks ago in the season, Leach in a meeting asked the players, do you want to go play in a bowl game? And it was, it's the unanimous thing, and it's the freshmen out there kind of leading the charge. So, yeah, we want to go play in a bowl game. No matter where it is or who we play, we want to go play. And I think that's something that Mike Leach just kind of spoke about, is that despite the adversity this year, Mississippi State never lost their desire to go play a football game. And I think while some other teams may have run out of gas towards the end of the year, I think, State found a sense of who they really are.
What about Tulu? Tell me, what do you think? His career could look – he was the MVP. He, on a day where they struggled to move the ball on offense with any kind of consistency, he flipped the field for them, and that's something that they haven't had even under Joe or Dan. Steve?
Most kickoff return yards since Jamian Lewis in the 2012 Egg Bowl. I mean, and with the new rules in place, you just don't have a whole lot of that. But Tulu Griffin nearly took every kickoff back for a touchdown. I mean, he's one guy away, one block away, from taking it back for a touchdown. And he has some real burst. He's got to get bigger and stronger so he can kind of handle the rigors of SEC play. But at the end of the day, he was a difference maker in the ball game, and especially on a game where the conditions are less than ideal. And that's one thing you and I talked about, last week, kind of setting things up is, when it's an even ball game, special teams is often the difference maker. And State clearly won the special teams battle, and Tula Griffin's a huge part of that.
All right, when you hear that around the country some seniors are coming back, have you heard anything on Marquise Spencer, even considering coming back?
Yeah, nothing definite, but yeah, he is considering coming back. And you may recall he got injured and has missed a couple ball games, and I'm told he's not quite healthy. And so you begin to kind of measure that against, okay, how explosive will I be in these pre-draft workouts? I'm probably a marginal pick right now anyway, so possibly there's a real chance that he comes back, but he hadn't made a decision. And I understand one of the last conversations that many of the position coaches had was with those seniors and just kind of said, hey, listen, before you take any money, before you sign with anybody, give me a call. Let's talk about it. And I think the staff's done a pretty good job reaching out to some NFL teams to give these guys an accurate assessment of really where they are in the draft process, because there will be some of these guys that elect to come out, not just at Mississippi State, but other places that'll go undrafted. I believe right now Kobe Jones is certainly coming out. I think that he's one that will go out, and we'll see what happens. Fred Peters expected to come back. C.J. Morgan has already announced that he's coming back. Brandon Ruiz, I don't expect him to come back, but I think there's probably, maybe half the guys that, that are probably marginal draft guys that'll come back and give it another go.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show. We've got a couple more minutes here, Steve. Marks and Dylan Johnson. There's some that don't believe that they may be SEC backs. Some people say, hey, these guys were true freshmen thrown to the wolves. They'll gain weight, grow up, and get even better. How do you see it?
No, I think both of those guys are SEC backs, and the way that Leach wants to use them, I think they fit exactly what he wants to do. And the fact that they've ran the football with more authority here in the last couple ball games, I think kind of shows that Mike's willing to make some tweaks and innovate things a little bit. But I thought Marks looked more explosive even on a wet track than he has all year. I mean, that's kind of been the rub, is that, first contact, he generally goes down. That wasn't the case against Tulsa. And I thought Dylan Johnson ran with some real conviction. He's a guy that's probably a little better between the tackles. But I think the two of them make a really good tandem. And it's going to be interesting to see how running back recruiting works here in the years to come, because you're not going to go out there and get that 20 to 25 between the tackles, one-cut runner that you had perhaps under Dan Mullen and Joe Moorhead. You're looking more for those guys that can be a little more versatile and catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think Jaquavius Marks and Dylan Johnson will be a whole lot better for the experiences they accumulated this year.
Real quick, Emmanuel Forbes, you talked last week or the week before about he and McKinley Jackson, how close it was, number one, number two. I watched A&M. Obviously, McKinley Jackson's a really good player too. Forbes, did you know he had that kind of speed coming out of high school, Steve?
Yeah, and he's a bit of a long strider. He's the guy, once he gets in the open field, I mean, he gets at the full speed. You're not going to catch him from behind, and you saw that. But, listen, the numbers he's put up this year, and people forget that he wasn't the starter the first couple of ball games. He's the guy that has kind of earned that spot over the course of the season. But, getting some All-American mentions now. How cool is that?
That's a big-time player right there. Emmanuel Forbes from Grenada, Mississippi, true freshman with the pick six on Thursday. That wasn't his first one of the year either. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast, and 247 Sports. He joined us on the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale guest line. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
See you, bro.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. David Johnson will join us at 9:15. David Johnson, 9:15, and then Brad Everts, College Game Day on ESPN Radio at 9:30. Welcome in. Good morning. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Sark to Texas. Is Dan Mullen on the move? More coming up next.